How can I raise my child and help my child not to become a narcissist? Hello, hi there, I am Thekla Petridou and this is our channel Psychology and Life. Today's subject is really interesting. It is my take on answering a really difficult question that was posed in the comments underneath the video, The Trauma of Narcissism. I will include the URL of that video in the description box of this video. I have just watched this video and a question arose while watching it that I would like to share with the community. Given the critical period leading up to the age of 26 to 28, when the frontal lobes responsible for critical thinking, impulse control, and emotional regulation are nearing full development, one might ponder the real prospects for modifying entrenched narcissistic behaviors observed up until this point. How feasible is it truly to initiate and sustain meaningful change in such behaviors, especially when they are deeply rooted in one's personality? Moreover, within this intricate dynamic, what responsibilities fall upon the shoulders of parents? Can their involvement and strategies significantly influence the trajectory of change, or is their role more limited than traditionally believed? Amid these considerations, the question arises: to what extent can individuals overcome their narcissistic tendencies, and what factors might facilitate or impede this process? Is the notion of change more of a hopeful ideal than a tangible reality? Or is there substantial evidence to suggest that with appropriate interventions, even deeply ingrained patterns of behavior can be altered? And another commenter answered to him: the marginal benefit would need to be assessed, the time needed to improve and costs like therapy would need to be equal or less than the benefit of changing. Okay, I am not a financial analyst. I'm merely a psychologist and a therapist, and I will try my best to answer this question in simpler words than the ones used to phrase it. I can only theorize that the person writing this question was thinking in Greek and writing in English. Okay, how can I raise my child and help my child not to become a narcissist? How? Are there substantial evidence that early consideration of parents to raise their children in a manner that they will not become narcissists really help them? Okay. As I have said in the video, The Trauma of Narcissism, narcissistic behaviors and narcissistic personality type is a new area of research. So no, we do not have substantial evidence as to what extent a parent can help their children through their upbringing as not to become narcissists, even if they inherit some narcissistic personality traits or show some narcissistic tendencies. And the personality traits that one inherits can be modified. When I was studying at the university, there was this huge debate, which I can only believe that it's still going on, about nature and nurture. Whether what is more important and crucial in a person's development is the genes they have inherited, the tendencies and the characteristics and the personality traits they have inherited through their genes, or the way they were nurtured, their environment. Is it nature or nurture? Is it genetics or environment? In this question I just read to you, it is implied that someone can have deeply rooted narcissistic personality traits at a young age. I disagree fully. with that theory. That a person shows early on in their life that they will become a narcissist or someone with a codependent personality type. What I know, both as a psychologist and a therapist, and secondly, as a mother, is that all children inherit some personality traits. Parents who have more than one children, and especially when they are mothers that went through pregnancy, they will tell you that each pregnancy is different and each infant is different. This doesn't mean that a child, an infant, is condemned to have a specific personality type just because of biology and just because of genes and the personality traits they inherited. An infant, a child, a teenager can only change. Change is deeply rooted in the genes of human beings. What makes a human different than any other kind of mammal is that we have the ability to change and adapt. As I said earlier, we do not have empirical data because we have just started researching and trying to understand the different types of personality that a person grows up to adopt. The commenter has right that the human brain develops up until the age of 26 for women and the age of 28 for men. Recent neuroscience findings show that the frontal lobes are still developing until that age. This gives us a clear image that there is room for change. There is room for improvement in a person's personality style. We cannot minimize the effects of genetics on people. It's obvious that someone can be born and have a different demeanor than someone else. And it's not only genetics, it's also the experiences that the embryo has while in the period of pregnancy. When I was studying at the university, that was up to 30 years ago, we have been told that from the third month of pregnancy, we knew at that time, in the early 90s, that the embryos can have that part in the brain which is responsible for hearing, and the part in the brain that is responsible for comprehending the language. They had that part of their brains working, whilst in their mother's uterus in the third month of pregnancy. So this gives us a notion that even what goes on in the mother's life, or in the couple's life if the mother is coupled, can affect the child's development. So development does not start with birth, it starts earlier on during pregnancy. We know that we can have an infant, that infant can have some tendencies or personality traits. The development of the personality and the establishment of the personality comes later on. As I said earlier, we used to believe that came at the age of 21, 22, 23. Now we moved it up until a few years before the age of 30. We do not have enough empirical data in order to form a new theory on how to raise a child and affect their personality type. I can only talk about it through clinical experience and personal experience, but mostly clinical. I have been working with families, couples, mothers, fathers for over 2 decades. What I have noticed is that if a parent is aware of the difficulties that their child might face in their life if they keep on having childish behaviors as adults, and they try to raise them with emphasis on impulse control and delayed gratification, that can have a really good outcome. I can talk only about this case that I remember that was that came to my attention like 10 years ago. I had this client in the office that she was a mother of a teenage boy. The boy was at the age of 14 to 15 years. She was really worried about his behaviors. He showed lack of respect for orders. He wouldn't follow guidelines at school. He would have some outbursts, temper tantrums that were not compatible with his age. And she really worried that her child might become a narcissist growing up. She had some good reasons to worry if her son becomes a narcissist, because his father, that she has been divorced with, was a person with an extremely antagonistic personality. At that time, 10 years ago, we didn't know much about narcissistic personality types. We were mostly worried about a person developing narcissistic personality disorder. She raised her concerns to me, and I gave her a referral to an adolescent psychologist that she was also trained in personality testing. The mother worded her worries that her son was growing up and looked that he was taking his father's personality, and she was worried that her son might become someone with narcissistic personality disorder. I'm saying again that at that time, 10, 12 years ago, we didn't word it like this. We didn't phrase it like this. We wouldn't use the term narcissistic personality type. We would use the term narcissistic personality disorder. The colleague, clinical psychologist specializing in adolescents and personality testing, performed an informal personality test to that boy, and she said, because we were working together, that he had high scores in narcissistic personality traits and antagonistic personality traits. And she started working with him psychotherapeutically. The mother had to do some changes in her life. She had to put some rules in her household and be more careful on how to react when her son was getting out of contact. I had worked closely with the boy's therapist and the mother in order for the mother to help with the process that was going on in therapy. That boy was on therapy for a year and a half, and he had weekly sessions with his therapist. In order to achieve that, the mother made some exchanges. He was asking for an expensive phone, and she gave it to him in return for him committing to therapy. The results were impressive. After 2 or 3 years that he finished his therapy, he went back to his therapist and took another personality test, which showed that his scores on narcissistic and antagonistic personality traits dropped significantly. I still keep contact with his mother, and now he's at the age of 27. His brain has not fully developed yet. He has another year of frontal lobe development, but his mother assures me that he's a very different person than what he was before therapy. He learned through therapy how to cultivate empathy and how to limit himself when he felt overwhelmed. This was a success story, or this is a success story that I can refer to, but as I said previously, we do not have enough empirical data, and I really hope that research will be conducted in the future to see how therapeutic approaches and the cooperation of the parent with the child's or the adolescent's therapist and the personal therapy of a parent can really help with the child's change or alteration of behavioral patterns. I will share with you some simple knowledge about children's upbringing. As parents, bear responsibility, first of all, to be benevolent role models for our children. Our children mirror our behaviors. This is extremely difficult to achieve, to be a good role model for your children when you are co-parenting with an ex who is a narcissist. This is extremely difficult. And one can only try as much as one person can do. The case that I referred to was an easy case because at that point in the boy's life, the father had disappeared. He had moved abroad, he started working abroad, so he didn't come into close contact with his son. We can even say that he deserted his son. So the boy did not have regular meetings with the father, and he was not coming into close contact so as to mirror narcissistic behaviors. Things would have been much more difficult if the parent that had a narcissistic personality type was more involved in the child's life. I can only testify about other cases that children who are brought up in homes that there are differences between the parents, that the one parent has a narcissistic personality type and the other parent not, that there is much more difficulty in raising the children in a manner that will help them to develop empathy, communication skills, and take the directions necessary in order to develop a healthier personality style. So, nurture is really important, but you need to have a unified approach. Both parents, all the parents, and the therapists to work together in order to give a troubled child, a child at the age of puberty that develops antagonistic behaviors and narcissistic personality traits, to give that child a healthy and helpful environment in order to be able to adjust their personality type. Children mirror our behaviors, so if we have problems with our behaviors, we need to address them. If we have difficulties with regulating our emotions, we should address them as well through therapy. If we have problems in our marital relationship or the relationship with the other parent, we need to address them as well. And we need to work closely with a therapist when we realize that our child is developing to become troubled. As I said earlier, there are very normal and very natural and expected narcissistic behaviors in children and teenagers. It is only natural for a child to be egocentric. It is only natural for a child to seek for attention from their parents, their peers, etc. It's only natural for a teenager to be explosive in their behavior and to question their parents' authority or rightfulness. I think that we need to be careful as parents not to name our children problematic or troubled when they have normal behaviors according to their age and their psychological developmental state. So I encourage parents to have a family psychologist or an adolescent or children's psychologist that the family refers to. The same way we have a family general practitioner, a family doctor, we should also have a family therapist, a family psychologist. If we notice that in our family and our extended family there are people with narcissistic personality types, and if we notice that our children show some tendencies to narcissism from a younger age, and we combine these worries with the knowledge that their grandparent or one of their parents or some uncle or someone in their family tree has a narcissistic personality type, we need to be careful, extra careful, in order to set a good example for our children and in order to seek therapy early on. The earliest a child has therapy, the more beneficial impact this will have to their life and their personality. I hope I have answered the question in a sufficient manner. And closing this video, I would like to note that even a child or a teenager still have their own free will, and even if we try to give them, to set them an excellent example, even if we provide them with therapy, with a great opportunity and great gift of therapy, they can still choose by themselves the easy way of living their life, the narcissistic way. Being a narcissist is, according to my belief and my experience, an ethical choice. Being a narcissist is like being spiritually, emotionally, psychologically lazy. Narcissists, people with narcissistic personality type, are adults who are lazy enough not to grow up and stop acting, feeling, thinking like children. So we do our best and we really hope that our children will choose the path of virtue and not the lazy one. I really hope so for everybody's children to make these wise choices, and what we can do as parents is to set good examples. And society in general is not helpful because narcissists are prone to success in this era. So, I don't know. I really don't believe that our personality type is established early on in life. We come with narcissistic or not narcissistic. We come with our personality traits when we're born. Nurture involves with nature and can alter someone's tendencies. Human babies are different than any other mammal babies because us humans have the ability to change and adapt, and this is what makes us different than other animals. We try our best, we cross our fingers, and we take life as it comes. But if you have at the back of your mind that you tried your best, then you don't feel any guilt. And I insist, children, teenagers, adults have free will, and they can still choose the easy way, the lazy way, the antagonistic way, the narcissistic way, even if they are given the best of examples and they have access to therapy. We do our best and we take life as it comes. Bye.